My stepchildren said, "You don't belong in our conversations. Stay out." So I removed myself from the family chat. And then from the phone plan. And then from the family. My name's Brandon. I'm 48. I live in Portland, Oregon. 3 years ago, I married Carol, a second chance for both of us. It wasn't a dramatic love. It was the kind that feels like settling in after a storm. A porch light left on. Quiet hands brushing over grief instead of trying to erase it. We met at a mutual friend's cookout. Just two people hovering by the deviled eggs and trying not to look too alone. I liked that about her. She didn't pretend she had it all figured out. She told me, straight off, "I come with baggage, 2 kids, and an ex-husband who's more charm than substance." I told her I could carry things. Turns out I meant it literally. Trevor was 16 when we met. Maddie was 14. 2 sharp minds. 2 walled hearts. They were polite in that paper-thin way. "Thanks for dinner. But never 'how was your day?' I didn't expect love. Just respect. Just space to exist. I did my part. Fixed the fence after it blew down in a storm. Rewired the basement when the breakers failed. Painted Trevor's bedroom when he wanted something less childish. Took Maddie to the orthodontist when Carol had work. I remember the first time she fell asleep in the back seat on the way home. Some exhausted trust in my driving. I told myself that was a win. I took my victories where I could find them. Doug, their father, was the kind of man who showed up late and left early. The kind who thought showing up to a birthday party with an iPad made up for months of silence. He sent photos to Facebook, not support to Carol. When he did make contact, it was always dramatic. Like a politician visiting constituents. He'd arrive with high fives and new sneakers, take a dozen photos in the park, and vanish before the ice cream melted. Meanwhile, I was the one paying for groceries, tightening bolts on Maddie's bike, reminding Trevor to take his vitamins because his asthma flared up in spring. I was there but invisible, a substitute teacher they tolerated until the real one returned. Still, I tried. We had movie nights, homemade pizza Fridays. I let Trevor drive my truck in empty parking lots to practice. I taught Maddie how to file her FAFSA. When Carol had surgery last year, it was me who kept the house running, laundry, cooking, the works. I didn't complain. I believed time would bridge the gap. That presence would earn affection. Then last month, I saw something I wasn't meant to see. It was around 6 p.m. A Tuesday. Carol was making meatloaf. I was at the sink, rinsing lettuce. Her phone buzzed on the counter beside me. I didn't mean to look, but the notification lit up the screen. Family red heart. Maddie. Can Brandon stop inserting himself into our conversations? He's not even family. Trevor. Face with tears of joy. That was it. No long diatribe. No screaming. Just one sentence, one emoji, and I felt something small and essential shut off inside me. Like a switch I didn't know I had. I didn't say anything. I didn't confront Carol. I finished the salad. Ate dinner. Laughed at a joke I didn't hear. Then I excused myself. Went to the garage. And sat alone in the dark for almost 2 hours. That night I left the family group chat. 2 days later, I called our phone provider. I want to remove my cards from Maddie and Trevor's plans, I told them. Let their mother take care of it now. Took 20 minutes. I stayed on the line, listening to the jazz hold music, staring at the wall like a man just told he's being laid off after years of loyal service. I also contacted both kids' colleges. Maddie's high school, her clinic, Trevor's university portal. I removed my name as emergency contact from every form where it used to live. I'd always been the backup, the one who showed up when mom couldn't. I erased myself without warning. Carol didn't notice immediately. She's not the type to micromanage bills. But a week later, she cornered me in the hallway with a puzzled look. Why did the phone bill drop so much this month? I kept folding laundry, didn't look up. Because I stopped paying for people who say I'm not family. She blinked. What does that mean? I turned to her. It means Maddie thinks I'm intruding when I speak. Trevor agrees. So I listened. I stepped back. Her mouth opened slightly. This feels punitive. I shook my head. It's not punishment. It's clarity. I walked past her without waiting for a response. That weekend, we went to dinner with her sister's family. I used to drive. This time I didn't offer. Carol fumbled with the GPS. Trevor muttered something about, "Dad would have driven." I stared out the window. Didn't respond. The next morning, Maddie asked why her phone wasn't charging properly. "Did you call the provider?" I asked. She blinked. "No, that's usually your thing." I shrugged. "Not anymore." They noticed, slowly, the ripple effects of disconnection. The lights were still on. The fridge was still stocked. But the quiet conveniences, the ones they never saw me do, began to falter. The router glitched and no one reset it. A slow leak in the upstairs sink returned because I hadn't checked the seal. The trash bins weren't rolled out to the curb on Tuesday. Carol asked me why. "I assumed Trevor would do it," I said. "But you always." "I used to." Silence became my shield. My boundaries weren't loud. I didn't shout or slam doors. I just stopped. Stopped making things easier for people who didn't see me. Stopped offering myself to hands that only reached out when something broke. Carol asked once if we could talk. I agreed. We sat on the couch. She wore that cautious expression people use when trying to talk down a hostage taker. "I think this is all a misunderstanding," she said. I nodded. "It's not. It's clarity. Maddie's young. Kids say thoughtless things. They don't just say them, Carol. They believe them. That's why it cuts so deep. But you're the adult." "Exactly. That's why I'm adjusting. Quietly. Without drama. Just like they wanted." She didn't speak for a long time. She didn't apologize either. That was the moment I realized something else. It wasn't just the kids who didn't defend my place in this family. It was Carol's silence that permitted the erosion. She never said, "He's not your real dad." But she never said, "He is your family," either. In that silence, a space opened wide, and I fell through. The thing about silence is that it doesn't announce itself. It just slips in, one missing gesture at a time. No more packed lunches for Maddie. No more oil changes scheduled for Trevor's car. No more reminders about appointments, college forms, application deadlines. I wasn't punishing them. I was just removing myself from the equation they had already solved without me. But absence makes noise too. It started 3 days after I stepped out of the family group chat. Trevor approached me in the hallway. His phone screen was cracked. A spiderweb across the glass, held together by fingerprints and frustration. He held it out. "Can you help me fix this?" I stared at the phone, then at him. "You might want to message the group chat," I said. "I'm not in it anymore." He blinked. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to push back, maybe even laugh it off. But nothing came out. Just silence. He turned and walked away. The next morning, Maddie was late for school. It used to be my ritual. Warm up the car at 7:15, thermos of hot chocolate in the cup holder. Radio tuned to her favorite morning show. I didn't offer. Carol hovered in the kitchen. "Are you taking Maddie?" I looked up from my coffee. "No. I used to. But that was when I was part of this family. Now I'm just a guest, remember?" Her mouth tightened. "Brandon." I cut her off gently. She said it, not me. The room chilled after that. She didn't respond. Maddie stormed out 10 minutes later, backpack slung over one shoulder, keys jangling. She barely glanced at me. I didn't flinch. They still hadn't apologized. Not once. It became a game of omissions. Carol would ask if I could swing by Costco. I'd respond, "Isn't that on your family's group chat?" If the sink clogged, I'd leave the plunger beside it. If the smoke detector beeped for a new battery, I let it chirp. It wasn't spite. It was precision. Every helpful instinct in me had been severed by one sentence. "He's not even family." Trevor noticed it first. His gym pass stopped working. He got denied entry at the college gym 3 days in a row before he asked Carol to look into it. She did. Turned out the student insurance had lapsed. I used to manage it. Quietly. Automatically. Now it was her problem. She brought it up over dinner. Trevor's insurance expired. Did you get a notice? I didn't look up from my plate. I removed my name from his policy 3 weeks ago. You didn't tell me. Wasn't my place anymore. But he told me I'm not his family. I believed him. Maddie didn't say a word. She pushed her food around the plate like it had betrayed her. The next week, the router went offline. Trevor came downstairs, irritated. Wi-Fi's dead. You got the password for the extender? Nope. I canceled the account. It was under my name. He stared. You canceled it? Yep. Why? Because I'm not responsible for people who don't consider me family. He laughed short, hollow. You're serious? I nodded. He turned to Carol, who was sitting beside me on the couch. She didn't say anything. Not in my defense. Not against me. Just silence, tight and trembling. That silence said more than words ever could. They were unraveling. Not dramatically, not like a soap opera, but slowly, practically, piece by piece. The trash piled up. I used to take it out every Tuesday morning. Now I watched from the kitchen window as Carol reminded Trevor twice. He forgot. The bins overflowed. Raccoons got into the bags. Carol cursed while cleaning it up. I sipped my coffee. The water heater started acting up. I'd installed it last year. Bought it myself when the old one died. Trevor complained that his showers were freezing. Carol asked if I could look at it. I shrugged. I'm sure Doug can figure it out. Her face twitched. Doug, the phantom father. The one who shows up with gifts but no glue. They never complained about his absence, only about my presence. Now I was giving them what they claimed they wanted, distance. Trevor began spending more time at his friend's house. Maddie buried herself in her room. Carol tried to hold the center, but it was too late. I was done propping up a house that leaned away from me every time I stood still. The bills kept arriving. Medical copays, school forms, Netflix renewals. I ignored them. I had already stopped auto-paying their subscriptions. Maddie's Spotify stopped working. Trevor's Xbox Game Pass expired. They noticed, but still no apologies. No ownership, just confusion, silence, and the growing realization that the man they had dismissed had been the one holding it all together. The only conversation that mattered happened 2 weeks later. Carol came into my office, the only room they never entered. She stood in the doorway holding a pile of mail. There's some college paperwork for Maddie. Financial aid. I glanced at the envelopes. Didn't reach for them. She'll have to figure it out. Or you will. Brandon. Her voice cracked slightly. You helped with Trevor's last year. That was before I knew where I stood. She sat in the chair across from me. Her hands trembled. I didn't know about that message. Maddie shouldn't have said that. Trevor, he's just following her lead. I stared at her. And what about you, Carol? What about me? You saw how they spoke to me. You heard the tone. You let it happen. They're kids. They're old enough to decide who's family and who's not. Old enough to choose which rooms I'm allowed in, which conversations I'm permitted to join. I listened. I left. She didn't argue. That's what hit me hardest. Not the message, not the laughter, but the quiet agreement. Carol's silence was the loudest rejection of all. That night, I didn't sit with them for dinner. I heated up leftovers and ate in the garage. Maddie walked in, saw me at the tool bench, paused like she wanted to say something. She didn't, just turned around and left. Trevor tried again later. You're really not paying for my insurance? No. What if I get sick? Then your father can handle it. He won't. You know that. Then you should have thought about that before deciding who was family. He stared at me for a long time, then walked out. The air in the house was changing. No more small talk. No more fake smiles. Just long silences, short stares, and chores that remained undone. Carol didn't ask for help anymore. She stopped reminding me about bills. She started carrying her own weight, and mine the way I used to carry hers. But the cracks were already spreading. They didn't respect me, and now they had to survive without me. The foundation had shifted. I wasn't stepping back anymore. I was stepping away. It was a Saturday. One of those Portland nights where the rain doesn't fall so much as hang in the air, misting everything with a chill you can't shake. The house was quiet. Trevor was out. Maddie too. Carol had gone to bed early with a headache, though we both knew it was an excuse. The silence between us had calcified, no longer sharp, just dull and settled, like dust no one bothers to clean. 12:43 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I turned it over. Maddie. Again. Maddie. Then a text lit the screen. Please pick up. I'm stuck outside the club. Everyone's gone. I'm alone. I'm scared. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the answer icon. I didn't press it. Instead, I opened the family Red Heart group chat I had left weeks ago. I typed, Maddie's trying to reach me. I'm no longer her emergency contact. Please check your phones. I hit send. Then I turned the phone over and let the silence return. Somewhere out there, Maddie stood on a dark street, clutching her phone with shaking hands. Somewhere, headlights passed her. Music thumped behind closed doors, and a girl who thought I didn't belong was dialing the number she knew by heart. And I didn't answer, because I had learned the lesson. I wasn't her safety net. Not anymore. Let Doug earn his fatherhood. Let Carol shoulder the weight she defended so fiercely. Let Maddie live the consequence of a sentence typed too easily and felt too little. I lay back in bed. The ceiling fan creaked. The dog shifted in its sleep. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in weeks, sleep came without guilt. At 9:10 a.m., I walked into the kitchen. Coffee. Quiet. Steam rising in the light. She came in 10 minutes later. Hair unbrushed. Mascara smeared. Hoodie 3 sizes too big. Her hands trembled around a glass of water she didn't drink. She didn't speak right away. Then softly, you left me out there. I didn't look at her. Good morning. You always answer. Why didn't you answer? I stirred sugar into my coffee. 2 slow turns. No rush. Because I'm not the guy you call when it's convenient. I didn't know who else. You have 2 parents. I turned and met her eyes. You chose who to call family. I respected that. She blinked. The tears didn't come. Maybe they were too fresh. Or maybe shame hadn't left space for them. I thought you hated me. No, I said. Hate takes effort. I just stopped hoping. She sat down slowly. The silence grew legs. Walked laps around the room. Settled on our shoulders. No one answered, she whispered. I called Doug. It went to voicemail. I messaged Mom. Her phone was off. I nodded. She stared at her hands. I didn't think you'd really remove your name. I didn't think you'd really mean what you wrote. And yet, here we are. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the bravado had burned away overnight. And now she was just a 17-year-old girl who'd learned the difference between fantasy and foundation. I didn't twist the knife. Didn't say, I told you so. Didn't raise my voice or remind her of the months she ignored me, or the birthday she skipped because Doug offered front row seats to a concert instead. I just stood. I'm going to the hardware store, I said. There's cereal in the pantry. She didn't look up. I left without waiting for her answer. That was the morning I realized something deeper. They only see you as essential when the world tells them no. When the Uber cancels. When the father doesn't answer. When the mother sleeps through a storm. Only then do they remember the man who has always shown up. But love born from panic isn't love. It's survival. I wasn't interested in being their last resort anymore. That evening, Carol confronted me. Maddie had talked. Of course she had. Carol's face was a mix of panic and blame. You got a message from Maddie. She was stranded. Why didn't you pick her up? I poured myself a glass of water. Held it steady. Because I'm no longer her emergency contact. Brandon, that's not. She removed me emotionally. I removed myself practically. She was in danger. She was in the care of her parents. I'm neither. Her voice cracked. She's just a kid. I turned. So am I then. A kid who kept hoping if he gave enough, he'd earn the word family. I stopped believing in fairy tales, Carol. She stepped forward. Her voice dropped. You're punishing her. I shook my head. I'm protecting myself. She didn't answer. Just stood there, twisting the hem of her sleeve like a girl at her first confession. That night, no one spoke at dinner. The chairs squeaked. The forks scraped. Trevor asked if the router was still down. No one responded. It was more than awkward. It was dead. A house haunted by the echo of a man who had stopped speaking. Maddie cleaned her plate without a word. Took her dish to the sink. Didn't ask for Wi-Fi. Didn't check her phone. Just moved like someone walking through a dream she couldn't wake from. Afterward, I sat alone in the garage. She came out around 10:30. Still in the hoodie. Eyes rimmed red. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't turn. She stepped closer. I was stupid. I didn't mean it. What I said in the chat. I was just angry. I don't even remember why. I finally faced her. You don't have to mean it for it to be real. You just have to say it loud enough. She nodded. I get that now. I let the silence hang. Then, what do you want from me, Maddie? I don't know. Because if it's a ride when you're scared, or a name on a form, I can do that. I've done that. But if it's something else, something real, you'll have to mean it. She wiped her eyes. I want you to be my emergency contact again. I nodded. Okay. I changed it at school. At the clinic. I removed Dad. I felt something shift. Not victory. Not satisfaction. Just quiet understanding. Thank you. She hesitated. Does that mean you'll come back? I stood. No. I'll answer the phone if you call. I'll pick you up if it's late and you're alone. But the version of me who tried to belong, he's gone. You told him he didn't have a place. And he believed you. She started to cry. This time, fully. I watched. Not coldly. Not cruelly. Just with distance. You don't get to toggle love, Maddie. You don't get to call me a stranger 1 month and then ask me to be your father the next. She nodded, her hands pressed to her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I put a hand on her shoulder. I know. Then I walked past her, into the house. Carol was in the hallway. She'd heard it all. Her eyes met mine. She didn't speak. I didn't stop. That night I slept better than I had in years. Because boundaries aren't about walls. They're about knowing where you end and someone else begins. And that morning, when I didn't answer her call, Maddie learned exactly where that line was. A week passed. A week of whispered silences and eyes that wouldn't meet mine. Maddie moved through the house like she was studying the walls. Carol offered small things. Coffee poured. A note left by the door. My favorite blanket folded on the couch. It was the language of guilt, not of reconciliation. No one said it out loud, but the household had cracked open, and they could all feel the cold air rushing in. One evening, Maddie came into my office. She stood in the doorway the way she used to, tentative, unsure, waiting to be waved in. This time I didn't. She walked in anyway. Her voice was small. I updated everything. My medical forms. School. You're back as the emergency contact. I nodded. Slowly. Didn't thank her. Didn't praise the gesture. She Saturday. I removed Dad. From all of it. Still, I said nothing. She looked at me like she wanted permission to cry. When I didn't give it, she blinked the tears away. I'm sorry for what I said. In the chat. About you not being family. I finally looked at her. That wasn't the only thing, Maddie. It was the laughter that followed. The silence afterward. The days I came home and walked into rooms that got quiet. She nodded, ashamed. I know. You made it clear where I stood. She swallowed. But I didn't know what I was doing. Then why did it take losing me to see it? She couldn't answer. I closed my laptop and leaned forward. You came to me that night because something went wrong. You were scared. Alone. And you knew who would show up. And you didn't. That's right. Because I had to prove to myself as much as you that I heard you. That I finally listened to what you'd been saying. She looked up, eyes wide. Are we okay now? No. But we're not broken either. We're just honest. She nodded again, slower this time. I want to fix it. I paused. then said the hardest sentence I've ever had to say to a child I helped raise. It's not your fix anymore. She didn't understand. So I stood and walked her to the door. Go get some rest. And I shut it gently behind her. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't coming back. Not to the full role. Not to the quiet servitude I'd lived in for 3 years. Carol found me in the living room later that night. She wore that soft expression, the one she always used when she wanted to defuse a conversation before it began. She's trying, Brandon. I know. And she's sorry. I believe her. She sat across from me. So what now? I looked around the room. The pictures on the wall. The couch I bought. The chipped coffee table Maddie once spilled nail polish on. The little tokens of a life built by someone who no longer lived in it. Now I live differently. What does that mean? I met her eyes. It means I stop offering myself to people who only see my worth when something breaks. Brandon. No. Listen. My voice didn't rise, but it cut clean. I have paid for this house, this food, this Wi-Fi, these insurance premiums, the car, the braces, the tutoring, the clothes, the holiday gifts, the prom dresses, the dorm deposits. I paid for all of it. Not because I had to, because I wanted to be a father. Carol's eyes welled. You are. You were. No. I was a placeholder. She looked away. They didn't know how to accept you. But you did. And you let it go on. She didn't argue. The silence between us stretched out like a road we weren't willing to walk anymore. So what now? She asked again. I stood. Now I start pulling back. I won't fight for space anymore. I'll let the silence I've been given become permanent. I started with the finances. That Sunday, I met with a lawyer, rewrote my will, removed Maddie and Trevor from the documents, allocated the funds elsewhere, to a niece in Nevada who actually calls me Uncle B. I redirected my life insurance, took my name off the student loans, called the school accounts and revoked my funding permissions. By Tuesday, Trevor's tuition held a balance due. By Thursday, Maddie's after-school program was suspended until payment resumed. Carol confronted me in the kitchen. You can't do this. You said this wasn't punishment. It's not. Then what is it? It's letting them live in the world they described, where I'm not family, where I'm a background noise they turn off when it gets too loud. Her voice trembled. But they're learning now. You made your point. This isn't a point. It's a pattern. And I'm done pretending it can't be changed. The walls of the house felt different after that. More echo, less warmth. Trevor came to me finally, asked if I'd help with a job application. He needed a reference. Have your dad do it. He doesn't answer my calls. Then maybe you should have thought of that before mocking the man who did. He didn't respond, just nodded, left the room. That's how it always ends. With realization, not regret. One night, I sat outside on the back porch. The garden light buzzed. A moth flitted through the warm air. I held a beer I didn't really want and stared at the yard I mowed every Sunday for 3 years. Carol came out, sat beside me. We didn't speak for a long time. Then she whispered, "Are you leaving us?" I exhaled through my nose. I already did. You just haven't noticed yet. She reached for my hand. I didn't stop her, but I didn't close mine around hers. Is there any way back? Not to the way it was. She cried then, softly. The way someone cries when they know the funeral already happened, they just missed it. A few days later, Maddie left a note on my desk. I understand if you can't forgive, but I hope one day you can remember something good about me. I folded it, put it in a drawer, left it unread for 3 days before I let myself see her handwriting. It broke something in me, but not enough to return. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and love isn't the same as blind loyalty. In the weeks that followed, I stepped out of more and more rooms. I paid my share of rent, but I didn't attend birthdays, didn't take photos, didn't play chauffeur or mediator or the man who fixes everything with a quiet shrug. I became a shadow in the home I built, not spitefully, just truthfully. Because when someone tells you for long enough that you don't belong, one day you believe them. and you leave. From the group chat, from the phone plan, from the table, from the family. So now I ask you, was I wrong? To pull back? To let them feel the absence of what they called a burden? To choose dignity over obligation? Or would you have endured it? A lifetime of being used, thanked only in silence, remembered only in crisis? Would you have stayed? Would you still call that family?